Now, tonight we're going to be talking specifically about watercolors and using watercolors to make holiday cards. Um, now, this is going to be the giveaway tonight. So, if you are on YouTube and you'd like to participate in the giveaway, then all you have to do is go to the description of the video and click on the link, and it'll bring you over to Whatnot. And after the workshop, we're going to do the giveaway. So the giveaway is a card that I made that I'm going to show you how to make during the show. And it says joy on it. It is a blank greeting card signed, and it'll come with the envelope and an artist um, biography. Okay, so this is just some of the fun that we're going to have. Do you see the shine that's on there? Oh, that gold shimmer. So there are two different types of gold that I like to work with, and I'll be showing you those in a little bit. Now, this is actually a painting, but we can adapt this concept to a card. This is a painting with some pine cones that I did on watercolor paper. So I'm going to show you how to use a similar concept or that same concept. And then this is what would go on a card. And so it's the pine cones, cute little bulb, and then I went back in with a dip pen and wrote Merry Christmas on it. Um, and then, of course, there's the ubiquitous balls here, right? And I did a little ornament of a sock, a stocking, and then also some of the poinsettias. Cute. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to play around with some of these concepts, and I'm going to show you something called a bokeh effect, which is where you do the painting and then you soften the edges of the whole painting and you pull a little bit of the paint back out, so it gives it kind of a very soft look to it. Very interesting. I love the bokeh effect. If you haven't seen it before, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at that. And the type of paper that I like to use, of course, you can work on any kind of paper that will take water, okay, y'all, because we're working with watercolor. And so what I like to use, oh, good, you're looking forward to learning the bokeh effect. It's fabulous. So this is mixed media paper. It's 108 pounds, and it is made for wet or dry media. So it's going to say right here, dry and wet media. And I love this paper. I like the fact that the surface of it is a combination of, it's smooth, but it has a tiny bit of texture. So I feel like it takes watercolor very well. Now, of course, there's watercolor paper, and y'all know my favorite watercolor paper. As a matter of fact, I just bought this one. It just came this week, is the Gansai XL watercolor paper. It's cold press, which means it has a little bit of texture to the surface, and it's 140 pounds, which means it's got a lot of weight to it. So it can take a lot of water. And this comes in the pad, but you can also get these ring bound, so it has the rings for easy turning. Now, besides watercolor paper, now this was the Fabriano mixed media paper. I'll show you that when I'm first experimenting with shapes and ideas, I use something like this. So this is a big pad. See the spiral bound here? This is a bunch of different watercolor imagery, and I'm going to show you which pad this is. This is the Strathmore. So Strathmore mixed media pad right here. And same thing like the Fabriano, it will take water, not loads and loads of water, but it will take water. I actually use acrylic on it and all kinds of stuff, but I just think it's so fun. And I like the fact that it has the ring binder, because then I can turn the page and it's very easy to go from page to page, and keep your imagery in your notebook, as opposed to, which is more like a journal, right? As opposed to the pad where I'm tearing pages out to get to the next page. So I do like these ring binders for um, my practice, so I can just practice imagery. And when I like what I see, Then I take the images and I put them onto, these are postcards. So you see where, oop, like that. So this is actually, and I'll have links to these items in the description of the video on YouTube. I usually go in and put them in the evening after the workshop, or sometimes the next day. But this is the Richardson watercolor postcards. So it has the postcard thing on the back, but they're a beautiful 4x6 size, very economical. You're buying them in packs of 50. And then another type of paper that I enjoy is this. Um, it's got handmade paper, so it has what's called a decal edge, like a rough edge to it. I love this paper as well. And they call it watercolor paper. It is watercolor paper, but it doesn't have the same durability that this paper has with the postcards. So um, we'll try both. We'll try both tonight. And so we can see how the this decal edge paper performs with the inks and things. Okay, let me put these papers aside, but where I can easily get at them. Now, some of the techniques that we're going to be doing need tape to put onto the paper. You might want to, for instance, tape it down to a piece of cardboard, or I have these kind of boards here. These are good because they have a hole in them. This is a sketch board that you can get at an art supply store. And so it's very easy to put the tape on here. And I like these to tape down your paper if you want to make sure it stays flat while you work with it. Usually these cards are just lickety split, and I find in general I don't need to put it on a board. But if you're new to it, and especially with the bokeh technique where you're adding a lot of water, it can be helpful to tape it down. Now, what kind of tape are you going to use? You're going to use something called artist tape. So you see here where it says Blick artist tape, and the cool, it because of the tack. The tack is a low tack, and so it's the best tape I've found to use to put these things down with. A lot of people use something called washi tape, which is a low tack tape, and that can work too. Just I find sometimes with the washi tape that the paint gets underneath it, depending on how strong the tack is. But this is what the um, artist tape looks like. And the cool thing about the artist tape is that it comes in different thicknesses. So you see this is about a 1/4 inch, or no, I guess about a 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch, and I'm messing it all up. This one right here is the 1/4 inch. This one's the 1/2 inch. This one's the 3/4 inch. Okay. And that can be good if you're going to tape areas off, and I am going to show you how to do that. So, because sometimes you want to tape off an area, then paint around it, and then write a word in the middle of it, especially if you're doing a wreath or something like that. That can come in really handy. And then the paints that we're going to be using today are, in this case, these are watercolor pans. So I had mentioned earlier about watercolor pans. This is the Pebeo pan set. What I like about the Pebeo pan set of 12 colors is, especially if you're starting out, these 12 colors are excellent mixing colors, and you've got warm colors and cool colors that are perfect for the kind of things that we're going to do tonight. Now, I have lots of different watercolor sets. As a matter of fact, last week I was working with the Christy Rice watercolor set. It's just the Christy Rice watercolor set has different colors in it. And so for what I'm doing tonight, I felt like the Pebeo set with the more classic colors in it would be a better fit for what we're doing. Now, besides those classic colors, there are also some favorite colors that I have. Well, I have lots of favorite colors, but what I wanted to mention one in particular to y'all, and that is this one right here. This is the Daniel Smith brand, but it's called Paraline Green. And the reason that I mention this color in particular, and I think that every artist that has watercolors, this is an excellent companion to your standard sets, because it doesn't come in all the standard sets. It very rarely comes in a standard set, like a set of 12. Um, but the neat thing about the Perylene green is it's a super deep green. So when it comes to shadows and putting in your darker colors, it can be difficult to mix your own deep green. So having a Perylene green on hand is fantastic. Love the Perylene green, and we're going to use it when we're doing the Christmas trees and the wreaths. Ah, so fun. And then this, it can be helpful as well. This is gouache. So gouache is just an opaque watercolor, and you can see it's the white. So a gouache white can be helpful when you want to do a snow effect, or even it can help with the bokeh effect as well. So that's why I wanted to show you a little tube of the gouache white. I find it's better when you're working with the gouache white if you're using it out of a tube, so it's already moist. You can take gouache and put it in a little, what's called a pan, one of those little tiny pans. Let me see, let me show you one. So for instance, in here, this one, I added a white. Do you see the white right there? So that's a little tiny pan, and I buy them in a big box. So there's a little, it's called a half pan of watercolor. That means you can take your watercolor from the tube or your gouache from the tube, and you can put it in there. And then now it's dry. You see that? So that is the dry white. Now in gouache, it's usually called permanent white, titanium white, and there's also a zinc white. But in watercolor, if you're standing in front of a watercolor display, you may see it called China white instead. So in watercolor terms, it's China white, but in gouache terms, it's going to be your permanent or titanium white. So the little white one that I added to this set is the China white watercolor, but they're all going to give you the same effect. Okay, you just might see them with different names on them. So those are the those kind of paints, just like the standard paints. And then for the sparkle, like here you saw the gold, right? You see the gold shimmer right there. Oh, I just love that. So there are two types of those that I really like. And this one is the Gansai Tambi, and it is the starry colors, they're called. So the starry colors have a whole bunch of different golds and then a pearlescent. And the pearlescent is really good for the bokeh effect as well that we're going to be doing. And so this is what they look like out of there. These are just fabulous, absolutely fabulous. However, you do need to use a lot of water to activate these. So the gold is very nice, but it's not heavy, as heavy as I like it to be sometimes. So if you want a heavier gold, like more dense, then this is by Schminke, is the brand, and it's called an aqua bronze. Even though they call it aqua bronze, I don't know why they use the bronze name, because they have silver, copper, gold. All right, but the you're looking for the aqua bronzes. Again, I'll have the links in the video description for YouTube tomorrow if you want to go find out where to get these. And this one is called Rich Gold, and it's actually a powder that you mix with water, and then you can control how much of the gold is in there, whether it's just a light wash of gold or whether it's a very dense gold. So that's why I really like this one. But they're both good, the Starry set and the Schminke Aqua Bronze. Actually, this is much less expensive than the Schminke Aqua Bronze. So that may come into consideration, right? Is the cost. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then I have, I'm using this Corel dish. This is such a cool dish. I love this shape of dish. And it's just from, I think it was my mother's. But I love it for doing color mixing, especially if you're taking paint out of the tubes. And Florida Girl, you had mentioned that you have paint in tubes for watercolor. So something like this comes in really handy. Or of course you can also buy um, ones that look like this. This is a plastic palette, and you can also get palettes in ceramic. And so you can put your paint in here and then do your color mixing up here. This is a really nice one that I purchased somewhere along the line as well. So you are going to need that, and then you're going to need water. Now, I like to use, to activate the paint, I like to use a dropper. Um, a lot of times people will just take their brush and get a lot of water in their brush and then dip the brush water onto their cakes, those little pans of watercolor. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a dropper to do that. I prefer to use the dropper method. It's just cleaner. And then brushes. So today we're going to be using these are some of my favorite brushes are the Princeton brushes. I also use the Christy Rice brushes. If I could show you all the brushes I have in front of me right now, oh my gosh, ah, tons of brushes. But for these projects, I find the Princeton Velvet Touch work nicely. They come to, can you see the little point right here? It comes to a nice point. And sometimes you want a brush to come to a point, and sometimes you want a brush to be rounded on the top. So you see how this one is more bushy and rounded on the top. And this is also a Princeton brush, but this is from the Princeton Heritage line. So these are the types of brushes that we're going to be using tonight. One other brush that I really like, this is a Christy Rice brush, and you see it's called a cat's tongue. You see how it comes up? And that I find works really well for doing leaves. You know, so for instance, with the poinsettia, um, this shape is just really good for doing leaves. And then sometimes I like to outline things. For instance, here in this one, you see how these little bulbs and the stocking are outlined. So I use the permanent ink from the Micron pens for that. So I've shown you these before. These are by Sakura, the Sakura Pigma, and it's permanent ink in a little pen. Now last week we talked about, of course, the Fude pen, which is a fountain pen. So there's an ink cartridge in here that has permanent ink in it, so that could also be used. And then dip pens I like to use with India ink. And so that's actually what I used to write on here, for instance, where it says Merry Christmas, and here where it says joy. I like the thin and thick way that the dip pen, but we're not going to do so much of the dip pen tonight. I just wanted to make you aware that if you want to go back and see me using those dip pens and the fountain pens, you can look at last week's workshop where I did a lot of that. As a matter of fact, in order to practice, when I'm going to do any sort of calligraphy writing, I always practice. So this is a piece of smooth Bristol paper, and I like to do practice with my dip pen or even my ink pens on here before I go on to the actual card. And then, you know, a scribble page like this, then I use as an underpainting, and I go on top of it with other colors. Remember, this is permanent ink, so I don't have to worry about it running, and it makes really cool artist cards, you know, like the artist trading cards, because I don't like any paper to go to waste in my studio at all. Okay, so what we're going to do now is if there are there any other questions about supplies that you might have, because I'm going to go ahead over top of the table. We're going to do a little practice, and then we're going to do the work on the cards themselves. If you are on Whatnot or YouTube, you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Um, and there's my website. So I do write articles and put links to the videos on my website. So you can always go there to find the various workshops that I've just done, as well as some additional information. And then if you're on Whatnot and you'd like to follow me on YouTube, you can type in Tristina Artist and you'll find me, but it's Tristina D. Selms Artist. And if you're on YouTube and you'd like to pop over to Whatnot, it's Tristina's Attic on Whatnot. All you have to do is go to the link in the description of the video, and it'll pop you over here if you want to come over to Whatnot. Now, if you're on Whatnot, you can give tips to the people who are um, doing the workshops on Whatnot. But if you're on YouTube and you'd like to give me a tip, you can go to ko-fi.com. So that's buy me a coffee, ko-fi.com. And there on Tristina Dietz Art. And there will be a link at the in the description of the video tomorrow. If you'd like to give me a tip, I appreciate those. And hearts are also always welcome. If you want to throw me any hearts on either platform, it's fantastic. Okay, so this is the 3-ring binder, or the ring binder that I was telling you about that has the mixed media paper from Strathmore in it. And so we're going to use that to play around a little bit and just get warmed up before actually going on to the final paper that we're going to do there. So it's always good to warm up. Now, besides warming up, you also want to take some of your watercolors. Oh, here's another cool thing about this watercolor set from Pebeo is it comes with this brush. And it's cool. It's a travel brush. So it's in 2 parts like this. So you can just screw that sucker together. And you have a beautiful, beautiful brush in here. Now, look at the top of that brush and see how large and fluffy it is. And then compare that to these other brushes. So do you see that? This one from Pebeo is quite large, and these other ones have a smaller, more precise tip. So this large one from Pebeo I find is better when you're doing fluffier, larger areas. And then these are better for the details, these other brushes. So we are going to use this to put in just some color in the background. So to start with this, I need to add some water to these, right? Now, what some people do is they'll mist it. So they'll take a mister bottle and they'll just go like that and mist their watercolors. And that's because when watercolors are in a pan like this, they're dry and you need to rehydrate them. Now you can also do it with the dropper. So I do like to go in and just put a drop like this. So in lieu of spraying, you can also just put a drop like that. Now, if you have watercolors that are in a tube, now here you can see there I was doing some color mixing in the lid here. So if you are using this as a travel set, you can do your color mixing in here. But notice that's silver. So I like to do my color mixing on the white like this, a tray. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear a little area out here because I want to put the Caroline green I showed you earlier and a little bit of the white on there. So we're going to just take a paper towel. Oh, that would help if I grab myself a couple paper towels. The cool thing about watercolor is I can just leave this on here and let it dry and then come back in, and with a little bit of water, I can reactivate the colors. So I could continue to paint with that color or continue to paint with this color. It's that simple. That's one of the many things that I have grown to love about watercolor is the fact that you can just walk away and come back and reactivate it and keep going. And you, so that you will have the same color that, let's say, you mixed yesterday to go with a painting that you're working on. Okay, so I can just get my paper towel wet here and wipe up an area. And then that way, I've got an area where I can put those colors. You can see I get a little crazy with color mixing here. Actually, let's just wipe up some more of this. Don't worry, I'm not going to be eating food out of this anymore now that I put pigments in there. Although I could run it through the dishwasher and I wouldn't worry about it. But a lot of people are like, oh, if you use something for your art supplies, you shouldn't eat off of it. Okay, there we go, like that. I still have some blobs of good paint here, so that's why I'm not wiping the whole thing off. All right, let's get another sheet here, dry that up. This is so easy, these Corel trays. Look for these Corel trays when you're shopping on Whatnot. They're phenomenal. I like them because see how wide the paper is and the fact that it will fit right up there just above the paper. Fantastic. Love that. Okay, so let's take some of the Perylene green that I was telling you about. I love this deep, deep, deep green color. And we're going to be using a lot of that to paint various leaves and holly and things like that. And then here is the gouache white. So we'll be using that for snow and the bokeh effect. There we go. Nice. Okay, so we'll set those tubes aside. What's nice is when the paint comes out of the tube, it's still moist. It already has moisture in it. But let me show you this Perylene green so you can see what I mean about it being a dark green, which is fabulous because if you're doing leaves or something, let's say that I'm doing leaves with this. Oh, that's a light color green. With this color green, or even the other green that's in here, which is more like a, they call it earth green. It still has sort of an olive color to it. And so the Perylene green is just a little bit more deep. Especially too, it depends on how much you pull out. If you put more concentrated on the end of your brush, then it gets really dark. Fabulous. So I do love that. Ooh, love the Perylene green color. Okay, so let's do some sample testing here. So the first thing that we're going to do, these are my warm-ups. Now this brush is very fluffy. Like I said, so I like to use it for backgrounds. So I do use a pencil often. I'll just do a little sketch. So the first thing I'm going to do here, since we're just practicing, and notice I'm not holding the pencil like a pencil, although you can. I'm sort of holding it a little more loosely, like this, so that I can get a little bit looser lines. So I'm just going to do a bulb here. And then I'm going to put the little top on the bulb here. Okay. And then I'm going to do a, I think that's all that I need in terms of that. Now, what I wanted to do is, let me get another, I just got some water on there. What I want to do is I want to put a nice fluffy background in here. So let's say I'm going to take a little bit of, this is magenta. So you see how fluffy this is? It doesn't really come to a point. That's why I was mentioning that. So here I'm just going to go around the bulb and do the background. This is also how you can practice and get a feel for your brushes and your paints. You're just practicing. So I'm practicing on the mixed media paper. Okay, there we go. Let's put a little pink background in there. And then to actually do the bulb, I want to use a more precise brush. So this is the Princeton Velvet Touch. And let's make it blue. So this is my favorite color, blue here. Now, it's quite strong right off of the brush here. So I'm going to dip the brush in water. And that way it helps make it come out a little bit more lean. Not quite so dark. There we go. Now, some people stress over your your added colors mixing with the other colors. Don't, no stress. This is just fun time. We're doing fun watercolors, okay? So again, you're getting a feel for your colors, you're getting a feel for how they deposit, how much you need. Let's make it a little darker down in here, right? Give it the feel of being rounded. The light source is coming from over here. It helps when you do a bulb if you leave a little bit of area with not too much paint on it. Now, if you get too much paint on it, the nice thing about watercolors, you can take just water on your brush, bring it in here, and pick up some of the paint, and that will put your, you see the white there? So that'll, what's called bring the light back in. So that's why I say no stress, right? Okay. And then you want to leave that to dry. Now, it's a little early to jump into the gold, but we're just playing here. So I'm going to jump into this gold quickly. This one is the blue gold over here. Now, the interesting thing about these Gansai Tambi Starry paints is that these little pans here come out. So that if you find that you have a favorite color that you use a lot, they just pop out and all the information is on the bottom of it there about the color name and the color number. So it's super easy to buy a new one and just pop it back in there. Phenomenal. Okay, so we've got the blue gold, it's called here, on my brush. And I'm just going to pop that right in there. Quick and easy. Now, what I like to do is I like to put like a gold chain up here. Remember, this is the practice part. This is not the actual getting to the getting to our postcards part. It's getting familiar with your brushes. It's getting familiar with your paints. It's juicing up your paints like this, where we're adding a little bit of water to them. Okay. And then let's say that we want to do a tree. One of the things that, if you're not comfortable with just using a brush, some people have trouble just taking a brush and making a tree. They're like, nervous about it. So here's a trick you can do to create a tree. And I did it here on the card. Underneath here, there's a crisscross back and forth. And so you can use that to gauge where's the center of my page and do a background for your tree. So it helps you to know where to put the rest of your branches. So we're going to start with a little loop. So we're just starting with a loop. And then this is back and forth, back and forth. And as you go down, you're getting wider and wider. It looks really cool in the background. It just looks like the strings of your lights. Wider and wider, like that. So you can decide how wide you want your tree to be or how narrow you want it to be. So you're creating that back and forth pattern, just like that. Super simple. And remember, the pen that I'm using has permanent ink in it. That's the Micron pen from Sakura. So this black ink is a permanent ink. Now I can either put the star in with the permanent ink. Yeah, let's do that. So well, let's see. Like I said, this is your scratch paper. There we go. So now I have a star at the top of the tree there. And that just gives me a guide as to where I want to go with the tree. Then I can bring in my, this again, it's the Princeton size. This happens to be a size 6 Velvet Touch. So let's grab, I like to start with the lighter colors in watercolor and go to the darker colors. So here is the light green we're going to start with. Add a little bit of water to it. And then I'm just going to tap, tap, tap. So I'm just tapping like this. Just tapping. The boughs at the top go up and the boughs at the bottom go down. So somehow I got lots of paint out of it. Oh, I know what it was. It was that one right here. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with them going up. So the tip is going up. And then I'm just making little marks. Nothing, you don't have to stress yourself. Remember, this is just the first layer. We're going to come in with some other colors, other green colors. As you go down to the bottom, you want them going straight out and down. So I'm going to turn my hand, and now I've got them going down like that. So now we've got the basic tree, and that's just the first layer. Now I do like to mix colors. What I find is that I've got, I just got some perylene green on the bottom of there. So let me get that off of there. I'm already making a mess. See there? Okay. So now you could either use the greens that come in your kit or you can mix a green. So you mix greens by using a bunch of yellow. And that's where a mixing palette comes in handy. So I'm just using yellow, yellow, yellow. And then I'm going to add to that yellow a little bit of that blue. So by doing that, I can also create a green. This is a little bit different green. I want a green that has a little more yellow in it. There we go. So it's as simple as that. If you don't have the green that you want, you can mix yellows and blues to get another kind of green. So normally I wait a little bit before I come in with my next color, but we're just barreling ahead here because we're just testing. And you can see I'm just dabbing the brush and turning the brush. Now sometimes I'll turn the paper. Not everybody's comfortable turning the brush in their hand, so you can actually turn the paper if you're more comfortable doing that. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and grab that dark perylene green. Now again, normally I wait a little bit and let it dry before I do the next layer, but you can always come in here with a heat tool, which I have here, but I have a whole bunch of books on top of the cord. Let's see. So you can grab a heat tool like this and then speed the drying along. That can be helpful too. All right, there we go. It's not dry, but we're gonna barrel ahead. So this is what I was talking about with having a shadow green can come in really handy. So we've got this dark, 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 dark green. And we're gonna come in and drop some of that dark green in there, leaving the edges to have the light green. And I find the perylene green just helps to add that extra dimension and drama. Ooh, there we go. So it's as easy as that to make yourself a Christmas tree. And I just find doing the crisscross with a pen first really helps to determine where you're going to place that tree on your page. Now you notice around this tree there are dots. So I'm going to show you real quick how we do that. And what I like to do is either take a paper towel or another piece of paper. And so let me grab a paper towel here. And I'm going to hold the paper towel. I'm going to get a bunch of color on my brush. And I'm going to hold the piece of paper or paper towel. so it doesn't get on the tree. And then flick your brush with your finger on it like that. So that prevents it from messing up your tree design. Usually I'll use a piece of like printer paper for this. What I like about the printer paper is it's more stiff, but that'll give you that sparkle, a little bit of sparkle effect there. And let's take the yellow and just pop it into the top there for the star. Deek. I put a little bit too much water, so you can just use the edge of your paper towel like that, pick up some of that. Perfect. Down here at the bottom, I usually will pick a brown or a red. The nice thing about this set from Pebeo is they have several browns in here. So let's take the darker brown first, right here. And we'll just put that little bit at the bottom there. This is also a good brown, or this one for branches. So let me take the darker brown, which is called sepia. Notice how I get my color and I dip my brush in the water. So let's do a branch real quick. Woo, that is dark. Okay. Is that actually black? I thought it was supposed to be sepia, which is a dark, dark, dark brown. Let's see. It is kind of a dark brown, but it's way too dark for me. Okay. I'm going to pick up more of this one here. It looks like umber. And we're going to do a branch. And then come off here. And that's perfect for creating like pine trees or something like that. And to get the strokes for the pine, we're going to grab a little bit of the earth green here. And I'm actually going to combine it with what's on here. And now I had mentioned how this brush has a rounded top and this brush has a pointed top. So for the pine leaves, you're going to want the one that has or the pine needles, you're going to want the one that has the pointed top like that. So don't get worried about what does the branch look like. You're just throwing something on the page like that gives you the feel of a branch. You don't, no muss, no fuss, no worries. Okay. Now with this rounded top one, that's where you can do, I'm just going to show you real quick some of the mistletoe. So let's get some more of this earth green. This is the rounded top one brush. So I'm going to actually combine some of the two of these colors. Okay, there we go. And then, since the top is a little more rounded, mistletoe kind of has a rounded bottom or a rounded top to the leaf, like that. And let's do this a little bit more. So I'm going to show you the difference between using this one to get the mistletoe leaves and using this one. So it does matter what the top of your brush looks like. It's a lot harder with the one that has a pointy tip than it is with the one with a rounded tip. Okay. So that's a warm up just to give you a feel for juicing up your paints and getting warmed up, doing the start of everything. Ooh, let's do one more warm up, which is the poinsettia. So in this set, you have a magenta, which is more pink. Let me show you what that one looks like. And then you have a red. So this is a deeper red that looks more red. So you want to be aware of that when you're looking in your sets, because some sets, this magenta can look red, but when you put it out on your paper, because the paper is white, it can look pink. So we don't want our poinsettias looking pink, although do poinsettias come in pink? I don't know. Maybe they do. Okay. So I'm using the Princeton with the pointy end. And the reason I'm doing that is here's what a poinsettia looks like. I got this off of Pixabay, and you can see the really sharp tip on the leaf, or on that red. You just saw some, Salmon's Girl. They're so pretty, right? I didn't see any at the store when I went the other day, and I definitely want to get some poinsettia for my house to kind of liven it up for the holiday, right? Okay, so this is actually another artist, Shelley Clough Art, and I will link these artists as I'm showing them to you. Their Instagram pages in the description of the video on YouTube. Publix had them. Oh, really? Florida Glass Girl? That's so weird. I was just at Publix, and maybe my Publix just doesn't have them out on display yet. Or maybe they're all sold already, and then I have to wait till they get some more in. Oh, Salmon's Girl says she loves poinsettias, but her fur babies won't leave them alone. Yeah, yeah, you have to build a fence. You have to put them inside a cage, like a bird cage, right? If you want to enjoy that. So here, this artist, you can see how there are pointy tips to the poinsettias there, right? And then they have these really interesting little sort of bubbly things in the center of them there. But because the tip of the leaf is sharp, I want to use a brush that comes to a tip, a sharp tip. So this is the Heritage. It does not, nor does the Pebeo. See how the Pebeo one is quite round? That one won't work either. So you do need a brush that has that sharp tip to it. Okay, so let's look at the red here. Interestingly, this picture actually shows it with a little bit of, see how it's a little bit pinky? Isn't that crazy? So I guess we can mix the two together, can't we? Let's put some of this orangey red in here. And then I'll pick up some of the pink. And we'll mix the two together. There, now I have a little bit more of a poinsettia red. That's cool. Color mixing is awesome. Notice how I'm constantly, before I go to my paper, I like to dip the tip into the water just to get enough water on there to be sure I have that the paint flows off. Okay, so we're down here, and I'm just warming up on the poinsettia. So I'm starting out with that sharp tip, the end of my brush, and then I'm pushing to fan it out and then coming back in and lifting. Ooh, there's a nice leaf. Let's get another one. Now, the interesting thing about poinsettias is they have big leaves, they have small leaves, and the leaves sometimes ruffle a little bit. So I just did a little ruffle in the leaf. They're not always perfectly symmetrical. So that's what your practice page is for, just to sit there and play around with it. It looks like there's some other small ones underneath here in the background. And it helps also to pull a reference photo for yourself. That always comes in handy, I find. Okay. And y'all know I like to use Pixabay for my papers, or for my pictures. Now I'm gonna leave a little spot in the middle because we need those little green things, right? Because here I am working on it and I'm feeling like I wasn't leaving the proper space for it. So that's why I like to do a little bit of a test first to be sure that I'm getting the, I'm building the image the way I want it to be. Okay. Oh, it's looking good. Looking good, looking good. This is fun. Somebody described it as making little footballs, but I don't know. These don't look like footballs to me. There we go. I'm sure there's another little one down in here somewhere. What you're wanting to do is practice that, starting with the tip and then pressing so that it gets wider and then lifting so that you get it to come in at the bottom. And we're going to need another one over here, aren't we? I'm just looking for the balance of it. There we go. Okay. And then in the center, the beautiful thing about watercolor is now I'm just cleaning off the brush and then I can go to my next color. So in the center there, I have very light green. So since I want a light green, now notice inside here, there are little mixing wells. So I can grab some of that yellow and create a very light green. Even if I pull a little bit of this green into it, that'll lighten the color, right? And then I get a lighter green that I might want to put in here. Now it is helpful because red and green are opposite each other on the color wheel. When you put, they look good next to each other, but they don't look good mixed together. Well, they do look good, they just turn brown, okay? So it timing can be important in watercolor, and normally I would let this poinsettia dry. And once it was dry, then I would come back and put the green in. That way you're not likely to have your colors mix and mingle with each other. But we're just in practice mode right now. So if they do commingle a little bit, I'm not going to worry too much about it because we're just practicing, right? Okay, there we go. So let me bring that up closer for you. So there is a test of the poinsettia. Now, I like to come back in and use a pen to mark over top of the imagery and define the imagery, which is exactly what this artist was doing here. So you don't have to get too worried about how your image looks as long as the petals are kind of in the right place and the green in the middle is kind of in the right place. This lady's green actually bled a little bit into the red there. So it's okay. It is a-okay to have that happen, okay? Because we're doing something that's not computer generated, it's hand generated, and it's okay if things mess up a little bit. You have to be okay with messy. Now, this bulb that's now dry, I like to let things like this dry before I come back in and either use a pen of some sort to draw on it or to come back on with more paint. If I were to put a color on there while this blue was still wet, the colors would mingle with each other. But if I do it once this is already dry, then I'm less likely to have that mingling happening. Now let's say that I want to put a feel for snow on there. So I'm going to show you a little snow trick. I'm going to take this little sponge. It's just a piece that I cut off of a sponge. And let me get it wet. Okay, so just got the edge of the sponge wet. And I'm going to pick up some of that white, right? It was the white gouache, this white gouache. So now if I have it on the sponge like this, I can take that and I can put it on here and give it the feel of snow. So let's say I wanted this tree to have some snow on it. So I'm coming in with that white gouache, and the white gouache will help to sit on top of it. So let me show you that on the tree. You see it on the tree there? Eee! I love the snow effect. It's awesome. And it's just a little bit of the white gouache together on a sponge. Oh yeah. All right. So I think that's enough of practice. let's go ahead now and work directly on some of these cards. So you can either work on a larger piece, and what I do is I will take a ruler and I will mark out on the ruler 4x6s. And then that way you can work multiple pieces at one time on a piece of paper like this, cut them up, and then put them on your cards. Now, this is one of these 4x6 postcards. And so I work on each one individually, and then I glue it down or I tape it down onto the card like this. Now, this could just as easily, this 4x6, go into a 5x7 mat and then go on the wall if you wanted to make it a piece of artwork instead of making it a something like that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, this is still wet. Let's move this off of here, even though it's still wet. You can do it. Oh, there we go. So I'm just using a watercolor background here. But we are going to work on this is one of the watercolor postcards. And we're going to do this card first. We're going to start with this. So I'm going to go vertically and we're going to do this tree. So let's use, now I don't have to use the marker and do my swishes back and forth. I could just go straight on. If I've done the practice and I feel comfortable, I can just go straight on with the paint. I like to have some sort of line to tell me where the center of the tree is myself. So I'm, you know, yeah, can you tell I got my degree in college in computer science? So this is 4 inches wide, so 2 inches is about the middle. And I'm just going to do this to kind of give me a reference. Okay, just a tiny little pencil mark right there. And that tells me where the center of the tree is. Okay, so there are a couple of little pencil marks on there. If you wanted to, you could also draw a line like this, just a very light line with your pencil. And that would tell me where the center of the tree is. Now, you don't have to do that. You can just go to town with your brush. And most people I see online, they've done it enough, they just go to town with their brush. But I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to use the brush that has the sharp tip to it. And we're going to start, I'm going to make a bunch of that light green because I really like the light green. So that's putting yellow in there. And then some of this light green. I like the way that looks for the background. I usually build my watercolors in 3 tiers. I do the lightest, midtones, and then the darkest. Okay, so that's a good color for the background. And you're just going to start. Now, I want to leave space for the little star at the top here. So I'm actually going to start a little bit below there. And I'm going to put like 2 little parts going up like this so that the star can sit there. So let me bring you closer like this. So I'm going to start with this here and this here. So I've got my little bits and the star can go in the top. And then if you wanted to, you could just begin by going straight down that line. And as you go, just get a little bit bigger. So I've got the line right down the middle there. And what you're going to notice is if I turn the paper, I can get a more consistent sort of look there. I'm just going wider and wider. Now, as it gets wider and I've got more space in the middle, I add little branches going up like that to sort of fill that space. Okay, like that. Remember, don't worry about there being plenty of space because we are going to come back in and add lots more branches. So you don't have to fill the whole thing. Now, as I get further down, I'm going to start going from this to this, and then I'm going to be at the bottom, going in the bottom direction. So now I'm beginning to do the straight out like that and begin to come down. And I'm flicking this now to sort of get some cute little, and then here, just add a little more to make it more full. So that's the first layer, and that's using a reference line to help you keep it straight. And that's just with pencil, which means it can be erased. All right, that was my lighter color. Now let's go with a more medium color here. And put it here to see. Yeah, that's a little bit darker. Good. I'm going to grab that. And now we're going to go back in here and just add some more. So it's a lot of tapping just to create this extra fluffiness here. Can you see how the second color is starting to fill it in now? It begins to fill it, fill it, fill it, fill it. And of course, the last color is going to be the darkest. And I find I definitely have to turn this quite a bit to get it in there. But you're just dabbing, so it's easy peasy. I don't know if anybody is trying this with me tonight. If you are, if you're actually doing it as I'm doing it, let me know. I'd love to hear that somebody else is trying this out at the same time. So I am just filling in these areas. All right, so we've got more fluffies. Ah, I love the fluffies. Okay. Yeah, Florida Glass Girl saying yes, she has to turn it as well. Yeah, because it's hard to do this. Your stroke looks different when you do that. So I like to turn it to get a more even stroke. Okay, so those were the lightest color and the medium color. And now we want to go with the darkest color. So remember the perylene green that I have down here? I'm going to add that in with the other green that I had, and now I have a much darker green. Now, let's say that you don't have a perylene green. What I normally do is just grab a little bit of your dark blue, just a little bit of the dark blue, and that'll help give you a darker color green. So if I have my green and then I add just a little bit of the dark blue, then you're going to end up with a darker green, okay? I love the perylene. There's just, the shadow effect of the perylene is just so yummy. Okay, so now I've got the darkest green on here. And I'm not going to bring the darkest green out to the edges. I'm just going to drop that darkest green sort of in the center areas. So that's where you would have your most shadows, right? So we're just turning it, dropping that in. Now I'm finding I need to add a little bit more water to the brush and pick up a little bit more of that dark green. You don't want the brush to be too soaking. Okay, there we go. Nice. So with the 3 layers, you get a really nice, full looking tree like that. You can always come back in and add more if you need to. Now, I am going to set this one aside because, well, let's do the bottom and then we'll set it aside to dry. Because before I put the star on the top and before I do the boughs like this and put the little balls on it, this has to be fully dry. All right, I can actually start it by doing this. Come on now. There we go. I can get it started drying with my heat tool like that. Nice. Now I'm looking at this bush and I'm going, I want it a little bit wider on the bottom. So the nice thing is I can always just go back in here, pick up that mid-tone green and come out here and make it just a little bit wider. Let's make it a little bit wider. Okay, cool. I just wanted the base a little bit wider. Okay, nice. Now, so when I'm working on my palette, oftentimes I'll have my lightest green, my mid-tone green, and my dark green, and I kind of keep them separated so that if I need to go back in and build a color, I can. But I have sort of my mid-tone green right here, so I didn't need to worry about that too much. Okay. Now it looks like I got a little bit of green right here, so let me take, I have a special scrubby brush. This is the Princeton Velvet Touch as well, but it's a blender. So the ends of it are a little stiffer. And that's the perfect thing to use for scrubbing out watercolor if it gets where you don't want it to be. So I'm making sure that not too much water is going to drop off of here. That's why I clean that. And there's a teeny tiny little bit of green right there. Do you see that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrub it. I'm going to use this blender and I'm going to scrub, scrub, scrub. Not too much because you don't want to damage the paper. Just enough to get most of the color up. There we go. There's a tiny, tiny little dot left there, which nobody's going to notice. But to me, this brush is just essential. Not only because I use it to clean up areas that I might have gotten a mess into, but also I want to show you the back end of this brush. So the back end is hard and at an angle, and I use that a little bit later. I'll show you how I use that. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to put that little, oh, is that another little bit? No. Okay, I want to put the bottom right here. So you see the little bottom of the tree? Ah, so cute. So again, I'm going to use the brush that has this, the straight tip. This is the one that I use most of the time, is this Princeton Velvet Touch round, because it comes to a nice tip. All right, let's put a brown, let's put a little bit of a brown base to it there. So I like the base, instead of just building a base, I like it to have, you see this variation in the thickness of the line there? I think that's kind of cool. So I'm going to start with a little line here. I'm avoiding the branches if I can. So I'm just going to make it thin, thinny thin, a thinny thin line. And if you need to, you can draw a little pencil line here, because I'm not doing it straight down. I like it when it comes at an angle. That's just the way I like it. So I'm just going to draw a little angle here for myself, so I know about where it's going to go. Okay, so I did a thin line first, then I'm going to do like a medium-sized line. Remember, doesn't have to be perfect because these are handmade cards, right? We are allowed to draw outside the lines, and to have everything be wonky is perfectly fine. Okay, now I'm going to erase the bottom here because I can see I did not do the bottom evenly. And then I'm going to do this, and it's going to be a little bit bigger on the bottom there. This is why I want to brush either this brush with a nice tip, or I want a detail brush. So I could have come in with a little tiny brush like this. Let me show you. Teeny tiny little brush like that to do the details. But like I said, I like this one because it has a sharp tip, and so I can get the details without having to go to a detail brush. Okay, lovely, lovely. There we go. So there's the base of it. Ah, that's so fun. Now I'm leaving myself room here to write something like ho ho ho, or the other one I wrote joy, or Merry Merry, or something like that. I could put Merry Christmas, but there's not a lot of room there. Normally I do Merry and then Christmas like that, so I would generally give myself a little more room for that. This one I just wrote the word joy, you can see there. Okay. Oh, the tree's looking fabulous. Let me go ahead and dry it. Dry, dry, dry. A little bit there. The next thing we're going to do is the star at the top. Now I can draw the star with a pen first and then fill it in, or I can just draw it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my detail brush, which is here. Get a little bit of water on that detail brush. It always helps to have a nice detail set of brushes. This one's actually, this says Fine Point Art Sign. So this is a specialty detail brush right there. Comes to a nice point. It's helpful to have these. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this set right here. And I'm going to grab this yellow gold right here. Now I'm noticing because it's dry, it's not coming up very quickly. So let's use the dropper, put a drop of water on there, and that'll help it to come loosen up. Huh. Okay. So now I have a lot of gold on there. If I want to check the gold and see what I have, then I can use my test right here. And then I can just put it on there and make sure that I've got the thickness that I want. If it's not thick enough, I can go back like this, grab some more until I have the amount on the tip that I want. So now I can come in here and I can just draw a star. In this case, I'm going to draw a star that is an X with another X through it. There you go, right there. Woohoo! Nice. Now, the majority of the rest of the tree is dry, so I can do my boughs. And so I'm going to do the boughs with the gold like this. So it's like a string of lights. I'm going to just bring it in here. Oh my gosh. Just like that. You definitely want this green to be dry before you attempt to do that, because if it's not dry, that gold is just going to disappear by mingling in with the green. So, Florida Glass Girl, do you have any gold that you're able to use in your set? I mean, you don't have to. You can make it any other color. You can make it red. You can make it blue. You can make it black if you wanted to. Boy, it's just so fun. I love the golds. There we go. So now you've got the gold all the way down there. And now what I want to do is put some red bulbs on it. And what you have to be careful of course, is if you mix red and green, you're going to get brown. So you do need to make sure that all the green is dry before you put the bulbs on. So let's go ahead and put our red bulbs on. So here, and I'm using the detail brush again, but you could use the tip of the other brush. Let's make sure we've got a bunch good, oh, beautiful red in there. So now I'm going to go here and I'm going to put on some red bulbs. Now, inside this dish, I have a red, a really thick cadmium red that came out of a tube, and I find it sits better on top of the green, and you can see it better. This is another reason why you want to leave some white in there and between your tree boughs, because that way the red will show up better than when you put the red just right on the green. So let's put one out here where there's some whiteness. Put one here. You want that red to be nice and thick so it'll sit on top of the green. These are so cute. I hope you all are enjoying that. These are the best. There we go. And then here, just randomly select different areas to put them. I'm watching for comments if anyone has any questions. Okay. You can do this with a rounded brush as well, because the rounded brush will also give you round bulbs. Okay. Let's see here. Nice. Okay, so there it is with the little bulbs on it, little red bulbs. Nice. Whoa, excuse me. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is put the splatter on there, and we want the splatter to go from here up. And so I'm going to show you that. You see how the splatter's not down in this area? Of course, you could put it down here if you wanted to, and then write your words over top of it. But I'm going to keep my spatter up here. So in order to do that, I need to use some pieces of paper here. I grab a piece of paper out of a book that I have, and we'll just sort of tear it up so it'll work for us. And first, I want to cover this area right here. And then I want to cover, I'm going to use the edge of this, and I'm going to hold it here to do that area, and I'm going to hold it here to do that area. So now we want to do spatter. So let's get some of this lighter green here. So juice up your brush with a lot of color in it. Make sure there's plenty of water on your brush as well. Okay, nice, and this is called juicing up your brush. And then I'm going to protect this side like this and tap. Nice. Okay, and then I'm going to bring it over this way. I want to make sure there's no paint on the edge there. And then I'm going to add a little bit more water, bring it over here, and just tap. Tap and flick. There we go. Oh, nice. I'm going to do just a little bit more over here, but you're protecting your artwork, your tree, with that piece of paper. Easy peasy. Now, also, I find a lot of times there's nothing up here. So I'm actually going to put this right there and get that little bit right there too. Okay, cool. So now we've got nice spatter all around it. It is so cute. And then after that is all dry, then I go back in and I write my word on it. Or you could write a word on it right now if you wanted to. But that is the first card like that. So similar to this one right here. Fabulous. Now I'm going to show you another quick tree that is, well, these are all so much fun. Okay, so what am I using? I'm using the postcard watercolor cards, and let's do a tree. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use some of this tape. This is that artist tape I told you about. And then I'm going to do a line across like this. And then I'm going to do a little bit more here. I'm going to create a tree shape, a little triangle shape. So let's do that there. Triangle shape and another triangle shape here. Like this. And hope that they are somewhat even. Let's see. They're somewhat even. I don't have to be too perfect about it. You know what? I do need to move this in just a little bit. Like that. There we go. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we have a little triangle here. And now I can pick up my various colors and just draw right inside the triangle. And I'm creating little bands. So now I can add more color to here. Let's get a lighter band like that. This one you really don't have to worry. Just have fun. Let's pick up this darker color like this. I could even pick up another color like a blue. Let's pick up this light blue, add a little bit of green to it, just for something different. What if I do like a darker blue in there? And then we'll do the darker green again. So this is just building a triangle that is a little Christmas tree. That's super easy. Anybody can do it. Even kids can do it. Kids will have a blast doing this. There we go again. Do a little bit more. I see the color is fading here because I need some more of the dark. So I'm just mixing various colors. So encourage yourself even to just mix different colors up. And then I'll do the green here one more time at the top. There we go. So now we've got a triangle going, and it is a tree. Before I pull this tape off, we can let that dry. And then I can draw all over it. Usually it's good to have the paint dry before you release the tape. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a clean piece of, if I want something to dry more quickly, I'm like, I'm in a hurry, let's go, let's go. Just a totally clean paper towel, put it over top, gently wipe across it, and that will pick up the wet paint. Okay, and so it's not completely dry, but it's drier. So let's just gently pull the tape off. So when I pull tape off, I pull it off at a steep angle. So like this. You see how I'm pulling it off at an angle? And in general, that helps to keep it from tearing the paper. Now, I didn't do that earlier, and I tore the paper a tiny bit at the top here. But let me do this right here. Again, I'm pulling it from the side at a steep angle like this. And I'm holding the paper down so that I can just little by little, I can pull it. And that way I'm less likely to tear the paper. Okay, this looks so cool. It's like a tie-dye effect. Again, I'm pulling it. Oh, see here, this is, I'm seeing that this paper doesn't like to have this kind of tape on it. Okay, there we go. Blink. Okay, look at that tie-dye effect. How cool is that? That is just so cool. Now there's a little bit of green down here. What do I do when there's a little bit of green that got down here? I take my corrector brush, or my blender brush, they call it, and I just roll over it and pick up the majority of the color. You don't have to get all the color off, just most of it. Oh my gosh, that is so stinking cool. Love that. And then, of course, from there, you can go and add a little base to it. So let's add a little bottom. Why don't I put like a red bottom? Why not? We'll put a red bottom on it. There we go. And this one, I'm just going to do like this. Oh, so cute. And then once that is dry, I can come back and put little bulbs on it. But that's a great way to do a tree with kids. Oh my gosh. And it's so quick. And this is almost dry. Ah, it looks dry enough. Let me go ahead and I'm going to put some gold boughs on it. Let's take a different color of gold. Where did my set go? There we go. Now, I'm going to do the background first. Let me just do the background in a really soft color. Let me see. We're going to do like I'm going to pull this, but it's going to be a soft color like that. Just to give the background a little bit of color instead of the background just being white. Just a little bit of color. That way there's a little color in the background. I like to do my words on a background with just a tiny bit of color on it. Okay. And then let's do the gold. And which one do we want to do again? Let's do the blue gold here. So super quick and easy to do these. And I'm just going to go across like this, like this. Easy peasy. And then you put your bulbs on it. Oh, see, yeah, for these, you really have to keep working on it to get all that gold off of there. Okay, so let's do this again. Go over this. One of the things that you can do to deepen your colors, like for this gold, is you can just go over it a second time. So after you do it once, if it kind of soaks into the background, you can go over it again to get it darker or more, deposit more gold. Oh yeah, like it is. Nice. Okay. And then just like I did on the other one, you can put your little bulbs on whatever colors you want. But that is like the super quick and easy method for doing one of the trees with a little bit of tape. Okay, let's do this one next, which is a bough with a bulb, because then I'm going to show you the bokeh effect with that one. So let's get another one of these postcards. And I'm going to put that there. The first thing we're going to do is the branch. So let's do now I'm using the brush um, with the pointy tip. That's the one that I use most of the time. Okay, so first for the branch, we just need to get some sort of brown going. It doesn't, again, I like to start with the lighter brown and then move up to a darker brown. So we're going to start with a light brown. And we're just going to put it on here. Now I'm turning the brush sideways so I can sort of adjust how thick it is here. Do not worry. We can adjust it. Okay, so I do the 2 branches. Now I'm gonna add a little bit darker brown. So there's a darker brown there. And then I'm gonna bring the darker brown in here, sort of as a shadow to make it look like it's somewhat dimensional, right? There we go. So I like to use at least 2 colors on the branch like that. Now we have a couple of pine cones there. So I usually do the pine cones next. And I didn't show you how to do a pine cone earlier. So here's our test sheet, right? And I'm going to show you the pine cone. So with the pine cone, I take that dark brown and let's put the color over here because I'm going to lighten it a little bit. Oop, I'm going to lighten it even more. This is a yellow ochre because the first layer I want to have be the lighter one, right? There we go, that's lighter. So we're going to start at the top, and just like we did the tree, we're going to flick, and we're basically creating a little what looks like a tree, but we're making it into a pine cone instead. So it's the same movement as we did with the tree, but we're going to create a pine cone. That's the first layer. And then we go with a darker layer. So then I would go with the darker. And I would drop the darker in. And instead of working with greens, we're just working with browns. And that's going to give you your pine cone like that. So let's go to the actual piece right here. And so we're going to start with that lighter color. And I want a pine cone going this way and a pine cone going down. So I'm just going to start here with my little marks like that. And we're just going to build it down. Don't worry, leave plenty of space because we're going to come in with the darker color. Okay, so that's the skeleton, the beginning of one. And then let's get a little more paint. And I'm going to turn this around. And then I'm going to do one going in this direction. So we're just going to build our little pine cone here and leave plenty of white space because we're going to come back with the darker colors. Okay. There we go. So we have 2 pine cones there. And then we're going to pick up the darker color. Now, before we do the darker color, I'm going to go to the bulb. And here's the reason why. I want this to dry a little bit before I come back in with a darker color. So let's just put the bulb in. We're going to use, why don't we do a blue bulb this time? So let me get some of the blue here. And if you're not comfortable drawing a circle, you can use something like a lot of people you'll see online. A lot of people will take a toilet roll and they'll use the toilet roll to give them a guide, or you can use anything that has that shape. Okay. In this case, I'm going to use the toilet roll. So I'm going to put the color on the toilet roll to start, just on the edge. I need a lot more paint. The toilet roll will soak up some of the color, so you have to add several layers. Okay. And then we're going to come here, and I'm putting it down, and then I'm going to do it around in a circle like that to kind of give me a circle. There you go. So when you're doing this with kids, it's just fun. You're going to find it's a lot of fun to do that. with your toilet roll or your paper towel roll, something like that. Okay, so now I've still got blue on my brush, so I'm going to just add a little more water. And I'm going to leave a light spot right here, meaning I'm not going to put any paint in a little spot there in order to make it look like that's the lightest part of the bulb. There we go. Or the ornament rather, not the bulb. Okay, there we go. And then I want it dark up here and dark down here. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of the paint and I'm going to make it a little bit, drop in a little more while it's still wet so it can sort of roll around there. All right, that's how easy it is to do the beginnings of a bulb or an ornament. Then we're going to let that dry. So you can go back and forth between your areas to let one area dry while you're working on the other one. Now we're going to do the dark for the pine cones. So let me come into the darker color here. Straight, I think it's raw umber is the color here. So this is a very dry brush. I'm going to put a little bit more water on it to be sure that the color is flowing. Okay, so this is a darker color. Now we're going to drop it in between those little pine cones there. So again, just drop and flick like this. You want to fill in that middle part as well. Nice. So now we've got a little pine cone. We've got our little pine cone. Now we can put a second layer if we want to, but that is up to you. That's how I like to build my pine cones. And then we're going to dip into here again and do the one on the bottom like this. So a lot of times I will do 3 layers of color, but for the pine cones, I find usually 2 layers of color is plenty. And they're super simple. You just make them sort of fluffy like you do the tree. It's okay to leave white space. Do you see this little white space right here? It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to fill every space. That's the beauty of making something from scratch. You do not have to fill all the space. Okay. Because in the beginning, I used to be like, oh, there has to be color everywhere. And now I've learned, no, there doesn't have to be color everywhere. Right. No, that's not true. Okay. So now let's put in some of the little pine needles. Okay. Now we're going to be giving this a bokeh effect in a little bit. So I don't have to get too crazy with it, but let's get some green here. And actually, I like a smaller brush than this for doing the branches. So let me see this one. This is a size 4. The one I was using is a size 6, and I also use the size 8. These are all the round Princeton Velvet Touch. So they come to a nice point at the tip. So let's use our lighter green first. So we're going to go in with our light green. And you want a light touch too. It's almost like you're conducting, right? You see a conductor there with his stick and he's doing this and moving his hands like this. So you're kind of going lightly with your brush. So I'm just holding it and lightly, with a light touch, I'm putting it down and lifting it up. Okay. Remember, this is just the first layer. It's actually a little too dark for me. I'm going to add some more yellow to it. I want it to be a little bit lighter. There we go. A little bit lighter, a little more water. I'm constantly going back and forth between the color and the water, the color and the water. There we go. That's better. And then, so we're just putting some pine needles out here. having some fun with it. Okay. I know that on pine trees, often the pine needles are, they come in sets. So there's like a set of 5 and a spray, or a set of 7 and a spray. But, you know, we're just doing artwork. So um, we don't need to get technical like that. We're just having fun. Now, you know that little white space that was down here? Why don't I put a pine needle coming out of there? Yeah, that'll work. And then here, some more. Oh, coming down here. So we're just putting a little bit. That's our first layer. Then we're going to get darker. Let's grab some perylene green. Or here, there's a dark earth green, and put it in there. Not quite dark enough yet. There we go. There's my darker color. So we're going to come back over top of this with some of the darker ones. Don't worry. Like I said, we're going to be adding more water and softening this for the bokeh effect. And it's not bokeh like Boca Raton, which is BOCA. It's almost like bokeh. I believe it's BOKEH, I believe, is what it's called. There we go. So you're just having some fun, adding your different needles in here, thickening it up. There we go. Don't be too perfect because we're going to get it wet for the bokeh effect. So not to worry. There we go. So now we've got our branches, and we have our pine cones, and we have the beginnings of our ornament. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the fluffy brush. So you want a fluffy brush for the making the bokeh effect. And I'm going to let that green dry just another second, because it does help if it's dry. It's had a chance to dry. And what we want to do, let me get a little bit more of that blue, because I want to deepen that blue color a little bit. Let's get it just a little bit deeper in here. Then the bokeh effect will look more cool. More cool if we've got plenty of blue on there. Okay. So for the bokeh, we're going to take the fluffy brush and we're going to soften the edges of everything, coming like this. So we're just going to run our water in there, and we want that green, and we want the brown. We want it to run a little bit. We want it to run out. So we've got to see how the brown is sort of blending in a little bit with the green. That's okay. We're softening these edges, softening them. I want everything to look really soft and sort of fuzzy wuzzy like. And the branches here. So you see how it's sort of softening everything by putting plenty of water on there. And then let's take this, we're going to soften the edges of this. And we're going to bring some of that up in here. Bring some of that blue over. Soften, soften, soften. So everything has like soft edges. And then there are a couple of ways we can get the bokeh effect. So we can take a Q-tip like this, and we can go work back in and pull out some of the color like this. Oops. So let me do this. So this will help to give you that, like, you'll pull some of the color out so we get some whiteness going. like that. Pull the color out, pull the color out, like that. You can also use a paper towel. Sometimes it's more effective if you get the edge of your paper towel wet and you're using the edge of the paper towel and you're lifting some of that color out. You kind of make it into a circle there. A little bit more here. Let's make it into a circle right there. Lift some of that color out. And then that gives you that sort of softened edges. There we go. And like that, partial. Now, another way that you can enhance that bokeh effect of some of the color coming out is to use that white that I told you about over here. So let me get a small brush and I'm going to grab some of that white. I'm going to put that on a brush with lots of water and then I'm going to spatter it. So that white will also spread out and it can give you either snow or sort of a bokeh effect as well. So if I bring it in here and I actually deposit some of it, you're going to get that sort of whitening effect there. Remember my iPad is down right now, so I'm not seeing your comments if you're making any comments. So you can use this to give you kind of a bokeh effect or a snow effect from the splatter. There we go, like that. So we're beginning to get sort of a softening there, right? And this one is a little too much, so I'm going to lift some of that back off of there. Lift some of that. Gives you just a very soft effect. Now, once that is done, then I go back and I'm going to put in the gold on this ornament. So let's dry this. I love how soft that makes it. Okay, we'll get that dried like that. And let's see, oh, my iPad's only 3%. So like I said, if you are on Whatnot, I'm afraid I can't see your comments right now because my iPad went down. Okay, so it's charging. Let's, so this is giving you that very soft sort of little white spots effect. And you can always go back in later with a brush. Sometimes what I'll do is I just take clean water and I might put dots of clean water on there as well. So you put dots of clean water and then let it sit for just a second and then come in with your paper towel and that will also lift some of the color off and give you that spotting. So let's give it just a second and come back in. While we're waiting on that, I'm going to show you this other gold that I was talking about earlier. So this is called Aqua Bronze, and it is by Schminke is the name of the company. And I just love how dense the Aqua Bronze is. It is, the color is just so luscious. Now, it comes as a powder. So you see the powder there? So you're going to tap a little bit of powder into your bowl of some sort, receptacle, and I'm going to put a little bit more in there. And then you get to determine whether it only has a blush of gold or whether you're going to have a lot of gold. And so I've got some fresh water here. I'm going to put a few drops in with it. It's so cool. It looks like actual gold. Look at that. You see it? Isn't that amazing? And then I'm going to use a brush, my detail brush, and I'm going to just mix it. Mix it. If I need water, I'll just add more water. But these aqua bronzes, like I said, it's called aqua bronze, but it comes in copper, silver, and a couple of different golds. And I think they may even have a bronze as well. But this has in it a watercolor binder. So just like that, you created a gold watercolor. And you can, what I like about this is I make it very dense. I can make the gold very dense. And that way, when I put it onto my artwork, it's the gold has more punch to it than when I'm working with the dry like this. I don't get as much pigment coming out as when I mix my own aqua bronze like this. So let me show you. Before we do that, let me just set this aside for a moment. And let's take the paper towel. And remember, I had water on there. So just those little spots where the water was, more color will come up. And then that gives you even more enhanced bokeh effect. Yeah, there's a little bit right there. Okay, so now let's put some gold on here. And I'm going to build the top of my, and then I'm going to put a wire up here onto the branch. Right, so now we have some gold there. And then I'm going to use this to make some designs on here. Just little stars. I'm not being too careful. I'm just having fun with it. And adding a little bit there. I just love these aqua bronzes. They are so nice. This is the only one that I've gotten so far, which is the rich gold, because they are a little pricey. And I will have a link to it in the description of the video afterwards tomorrow. Okay. There we go. Fun, 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 fun. So now we have a little bit of, oh, I'm going to have to put one up here too. There we are. So now you've got a ball there, and it's got the gold on it. Once that is dry, I can come back and I can see the lines that I put around it like this. So you can come back, and if you want to, you can draw lines around it, or you can leave it having this very soft look to it. And then I would just use this area over here to write my sentiment, either Merry Christmas or holiday greetings or something like that. But it's a nice soft look instead of having the lines of the hard look like this one right here. Okay, what time is it? 7:42. So I'm gonna say that is, are we gonna do, okay, let's do one of the, we're gonna do the poinsettia, and then we'll finish up. So the next one we're gonna do is gonna be the poinsettia. And oh, this is just, I love the softness of it. Love, love, love it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to try the poinsettia. I haven't tried this yet, but we're going to try it on this handmade paper right here. So let's see how this goes on the handmade paper. Oh, see, I keep wanting to look at it. I just love the fact that it pulls you into the picture because it's so soft. Love that. Okay. So here, let's do the poinsettia, and I'm gonna use my pointy brush, right? I want my brush that has points on it. Now I'm gonna set this gold aside out of the way so it doesn't get on anything. And I have a little brush stand here. There'll be a link to it in the description of the video. But I'm setting that aside so that it doesn't get in the way there. Okay. So here we're going to use some of the red, right? Remember that red that we made? And what was it? It was a of the magenta, combination of magenta and the cadmium red. So there we go. Nice. Okay. So here we go. Let's see how well this takes the paint here. Nice. There's one. I want a little bit more of the cadmium red in there. That's this orangey red. There we go. It's a little too magenta for me. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Oh, like I said, it's okay. You don't have to cover the whole thing. It gives more character to your work when you add those little white spaces. Leave the little white spaces there. Okay, remember we want the center here to be empty so we can put those little fluffy, those little funny green things in the center, right? Okay, there we go there. And then there's probably going to be one right here, like this. There we go. It's okay to leave white space. See the white space in between there? That is okay. And then we'll come down. I'm turning the paper so I can get the angle that I'm looking for. So this is a stroke that you want to practice. And I've got the one side here, so I'm going to bring the tip of that brush right here. And then I'm going to do the other side. Right? That's how simple it is. But we want these sharp tips on these particular leaves have a sharp tip to them. Okay, I need a little more water in there. And let's do over here. So I'm going to bring this one like this. So I started out lightly to get that sharp tip, and then I pushed down in order to get the fatness. Let's get the fatness of it, the belly of the brush. Okay, and now maybe I'll do a couple of smaller ones like that, and another one here like this. It is okay if they overlap. Not to worry if they overlap. Okay, I need a little more dense color in here. Now you can add some interest by getting darker color or more color on your brush like this, getting the tip wet, and then dropping it in at the bottom of the leaves here. And that'll help give you a darker sense at the base of the leaves. It just gives the petals more interest if you darken the bottoms of them. There we go. All right, there we are. That's the leaves of the poinsettia, or the poinsettia flower itself. Let's put some little bits in the center here. So I don't want this big brush. I want a small brush for the center. So I'm going with the size 4. And we want that sort of light green in there, right? In this case, I like the green with a little bit of yellow. Oop, a little bit of yellow. Look at that yellow. It's okay because you can just clean it up later. So normally I would wait. Do you see how that's wet right there? I would normally wait till the wet is dry to put the green in the center, but hey, we are going to live dangerously right now, and I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, see, it's beginning to run into the red. That is a-okay. It's okay. It's okay. There we go. So we've got those in the center. Oh, it looks so pretty. Now we're also going to want to do some green leaves. So let me show you the leaves. They're like this dark green, almost like the perylene green. You see how dark they are? And they come off. They're a little bit wavy on the edges. So I'm going to show you this really cool trick with the leaves. And it's going to involve, remember I told you the back end of this brush is stiff? And so you can use it for some cool things with watercolor. I'm going to show you that in just a second. So let's go ahead and get the size 6 again, the bigger one. And I want a darker green, so I'm going to pull some of the perylene in with this other green that we had there. Okay, so the leaf is going to be sort of, it's going to come down and it's going to be a little bit wavy, okay? The edge of the leaf is a little bit wavy. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting a leaf that's going off of the edge here. And then I'm going to bring it in. Let's just color it a little bit, adding more water. Coloring it, coloring it. Now I want this to be wet. So that's why I added more water. We'll see how this paper does with this technique. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, so there's a nice leaf. Now you can take the sharp end of this brush that was the blender, and while that's still wet, you can make a groove in the paper. And when you make a groove in the paper, you're going to see that the paint will fall down into that groove, and that part of the paint will be darker. So hold on a second, I'll show you. So do you see the lines that are on there? Now, if I add a little more paint into there, the lines really get accentuated. Oh yeah, good, it worked. Fab. That is so cool. You see the lines? I love that. I love that effect. Now, the other way that you can do that, besides using the back end of the brush like this, if you have on hand a glass, this is a glass dip pen. The end of the glass dip pen is also stiff. And so you can do the exact same technique with the glass dip pen and get those lines. You see the lines in the leaf right there? So fantastic. I love, love, love that technique. Let's go a little more perylene green. And let's do another leaf over here. Like that. Okay. Lovely. Now I'm not touching the red. I'm going around the red, okay? I'm getting close to it, but I'm not touching it because I don't want that red to bleed into the green. And it's okay if you have white space in between your colors like that. That is perfectly fine. Okay, so this is nice and wet. So I'm going to show you with the glass dip pen. So some of you might have glass dip pen at home. And there we go. We're getting those really cool lines. What? I know, this is like the coolest. effect. Ugh. Now you see it really deep on that one. You see it there? Oh my gosh, I just love that so much. Now I'm going to deepen that leaf color, and it's really going to pick up in those scratchy marks. See there? Oh my gosh, it's so fun. All right, so I will finish this later in terms of the leaves and everything around it. But what I wanted to show you was, okay, now we want to come in and define these petals with a marker. So like this artist did right here. You see that? So let us use that as a guide and then come in here. And in this case, I'm going to use the Micron pen like I showed you before, but you could also use a dip pen. Or, you know what? I think I'm going to use this one. This is the Sailor Fude that I showed you in last week's workshop. And it has a brown permanent ink in it. So why don't we use that one? Because I already showed you using the Micron. So this one, I'm going to get the ink started on a blotter. So that's on a different piece of paper. And then I'm going to come in here. And then the nice thing about the fountain pen is it gives you a little bit more of an organic line than the Micron pen. The Micron pen gives you a more precise line because of the type of tip that it is. And this Fude pen from Sailor that I showed you last week has a bent nib, and it gives you thin and thick lines. So it's a little bit different in the way that it gives you the lines. So then I'm just coming in here. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to follow the flower perfectly. But that's really helping to define the look of your flower. So let's do this. You don't even have to have it be exactly. You see how I went outside the lines of the flower? That is okay. That's all part of the design. It is perfectly fine to do that. So I'm not going to finish this right now. You can imagine the rest of it. I would just go around it with, I'm using a waterproof ink. That's what's inside here. If you were with me last week, you know I was using the sketch ink. And so if you want to learn more about working with a fountain pen and the sketch ink, you can watch last week's workshop. But that is what I was using there is a permanent waterproof ink, similar to the Micron that she used here. Okay, so that is it for the workshop part of the show. I appreciate y'all being here for the workshop.